Welcome everyone. This is another one of OERC's seminars. We have them every month. If you're interested in hearing more of them, we have James pointed it out to me. We've got a sign-up sheet if you're interested in signing up for more of our seminars on energy research that's happening in Otago and around New Zealand. Okay, so today we have the pleasure of having Henrik Moller here to give us a talk about some of the work he's been doing in citizen science. So Henrik is Emeritus Professor here at the Centre for Sustainability, but also co-founder of the Fleet, an organisation of citizens, really, and researchers looking at electric vehicles and electric vehicle uptake in New Zealand. So without further ado, I'll just
folks, even my best friends say that I've got a tongue muscle where my brain should be. And if you would excuse this quick diversion, 3 times I've blown my mouth off and got involved in surprising science with communities as a result. The first was in DSIR days, and right back in about 1984, we'd just been sent to a media course, and I went out to study wasps in the Nelson Forest, and there was a huge invasion of this new wasp species. I'll just give this new media skills a bit of a whirl. Up they came, and of course, the wasp hordes are coming to get us was the line, it was TV ones. And I said in the middle of the interview on the spur of the moment, we really got to find out where this wasp came from and how far it's got in New Zealand. But members of the public sent us in wasp species. So that's fine. I went to air on Friday night, and the next day, a colleague from the Bridge Club said, I think you've got a problem, Henrik. Because a wasp flew into the Bridge Club, and 4 people leapt up and fought over who could get that wasp and send it to the nice man in DSIR. Turned out that I had over 7,000 wasps sent in. People thought that I wanted live wasps and put them in cages and had them breeded to me. We had over 98,000 wasp specimens identified. We had to scramble to get unemployed people to answer these letters. We sent out letters to these people saying what was in their sample, thank you, and then they wrote back and said, oh, thank you for this information. Some of them slipped $5 into the envelope to go and get up here. And the media went off the handle, and my colleagues hated me up and down the country. They were really pissed off because of public pressure. They came through their front doors, and many of those colleagues were very sceptical that we could make anything out of those data. And well, that turned into 28 scholarly journal articles and lots of funding. And so that was my first wake-up call that there were a whole lot of people out there who desperately want to be involved in science, often for environmental reasons, and that we have some sort of professional block about getting involved in those sorts of things. The second, well, you roll forward 15 years, I had a job with the University of Otago by then, and an external review said, well, I was running a white middle-class forest and bird conservation organisation this time I covered into my treaty response. So I ended up going down working with Moller on the Takiaki-tanga, and that turned into an 18-year journey of surprise, pain. But it was a participatory project of quite a different nature. I won't go into the details, we run out of time. And then I thought I'd retire. And my partner Fiona and I found us here somewhere, and we decided to buy an electric car. And I've never been interested in cars in my life. Suddenly I became intensely interested in electric cars. And I blew my mouth off. Well, this time it was on Facebook. Big mistake. After 15 years of conscientious objection to Facebook, I joined to meet the EV networks, and they were arguing about data from their one individual car, and quite vehemently. I just happened to say, well, why don't we share data? And a wonderful man called Dima Ivanov, a Russian IT specialist, said, yeah, use my benchmarking system, and it took off from there. And so now 2 years later, I'm struggling to do my paid work and semi-retirement, and I've become fascinated by the one I'll teach today about electric vehicles. So that was a transformative process, 3 cycles of surprise, and what I thought I would do today is talk about that process. What is that not working, Jane? Where's it?
Like the little
Yeah, it's in. Sorry, I did that before, didn't I? Sorry about this. Perhaps I used the arrows.
Just to. Oh, it didn't work either. Okay, so.
So the whole thing's frozen?
No, is it something to do with where you put the mouse? How you hold your mouth?
Yeah.
Put down.
All right. So I thought today we would talk about citizen science, and we both try to, and less about electric cars. So, but many of you may be interested in electric cars, and I'm happy to talk about them later, ad nauseam if you like. I want to talk more about people and less about numbers. As a reformed positivist from zoology, I've become very interested in qualitative change and people's role in that. And I want to talk more about the process and less about the actual results today. So later on, we're going to have a workshop for people who want to join with these data and think about the way of joining them to form scholarship endeavours later on. And we can get more into results at that point. So what's this thing called citizen science? It's sort of, when I did the WASP, I think there was no label for it or anything. It just kind of happened by accident, and gradually this has emerged as people recognising it as a legitimate way of finding out about how the world works. And one definition is just that it's a collection of analysis of data relating to the natural world. That's an historical thing. I would suggest you jump that now. That it's actually to do with the world now, although its claim came from environmental science and citizens approaches. But it involves the general public and typically collaborates with professional scientists. So that's one definition. And you might have heard community science, crowdsourced science, civic science. All those are labels that work. Doesn't really matter. One of the more subtle things, though, is there's something called participatory science, and we're sort of straddled between those. And that's very much more an interactive process where this can be quite a one-way process for the people who are collecting the data or designing the program. And they treat the public a bit like data slaves. And you pass the data up, and then, me as a professional, I'll work out what it means. But the participatory approaches are much more interactive than that, and they're trying to involve the public in the problem definition, yes, collecting the data, but then interpreting what the data means and how it goes. And so there's this Sui et al. Have got this sort of idea that you start here at crowdsourcing, but you start to get into some sort of distributed intelligence process, and then eventually you're getting into the participatory science thing, and that can become extreme. And I would say that the project I'm going to talk to you about here is sort of in this sort of realm here. And I would say that a goal, in terms of the excitement from transdisciplinarity, is that getting up that ladder as fast as you can. So it's kind of like an arm's-length ladder for participation. So yeah, I'm doing a mixture of those two, and I think the more participatory we can make it, the more surprising it will be, although that won't work out all the time. And now there's these websites. I mean, here's just one example of a citizen science organisation. You can see here they are going more what I feel comfortable about. They're talking about uniting educators, scientists, data managers, bringing them all together and interpreting stuff. And I think this is the biggest missed opportunity for our university in terms of our traditional approach, where we tend to stay within our walls. And there's lots of power in here that I think can be harnessed for sustainability transitions. Flip the fleet is the example I'm going to use. It's this, what we call this coalition of electric vehicle owners. It includes the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. We publicly launched in June 2017 after a year of trials with just even my own electric vehicle at the start, trying to work out the software and gradually shoulder tapping people. But we launched then. Now we've got about 918 EVs signed up to the system. As of this morning, around about 20 fleets, collectives of individuals, but mainly their family owners. So far in the database, as of this morning, there are 5,246 monthly records of the performance of the vehicle. So we're asking each participant to record information off the dashboard or off the battery management systems and CAN bus. It's not really a computer, but it's a sort of systems in these vehicles. And you can download a lot of data from that. And each of these rows of data have got between 8 and 20 key performance indicators there. So it's a fastly accumulating database, and And we also have a sort of a social research platform, the monthly one-click surveys that I'm talking about. So that's what's happening. I get excited as hell when the first of the month comes around, because all my cars are going to send me the data. And yeah, I'm a geek. I really like numbers, and I think they're the key for putting out choices for sustainability in the country. So yeah, of course they're not mine, but it is it's a wonderful feeling that having got this set up. It's got a momentum of its own now, and people are shoulder tapping and finding other members and inviting them to join. Let's think about what we're trying to do here. And many of you will be aware of Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation side. I think it's kind of a standard greeting from marketing, and the whole idea that you know, to get a new idea, it could be a religious idea, but it could be a technology, any sort of idea, that the people in the population, in this case electric vehicle owners, have different kind of openness to taking up an electric vehicle, or different capacity to be able to do so. And Everett Rogers, he was trying to transform agriculture actually in his early years and trying to get new innovations going with farmer, but it's gone right through the world. And fifth edition, I think, was 2003 or 4 or something like that. And he divided the country into the popular sort of target for receiving a new idea into these different categories. This is very stylized, but yeah, you will have heard of the innovators and the early experimenters, the early adopters. And then this early majority is the next group along in society. And then this rather disparaging thing about being laggards, which is totally loaded and very, very inappropriate language in my view. But the idea is that somehow these are going to be slow, and it might be their problem that they're slow, rather than they're wise and they're avoiding the bad innovation. So we've got this whole problem here. And the thing is that what makes people, all these people are different in their orientation, their values, what sort of messages they will hear, and what we have to try and do is transition from that. Or flip the fleet is doing, is try to take this information from the innovators and the early adopters and start spreading it using IT platforms and citizen science, analysing it and spreading it to these early adopters, to the early majority. That's it's a simple idea as that, but it turns out to be fairly complicated. If you turn that into a cumulative curve off, and this is it, and people will recognise a critical mass, this is where a new idea or innovation, say electric vehicles, are so common now, everyone's going to take one. They've got over their fear and their reluctance, and away they go. And what we're hoping, of course, is that flip the fleet will bring that curve forward. But it's subtly in two ways. Not only will we get the transition earlier, but maybe we'll be able to walk away from it quicker, because everyone is being organised and collecting the information together and sharing it. And so the goal, the holy grail, would be to have that critical mass come earlier, because then you know, it's inevitable that electric vehicles will be here for our carbon zero future in 2050. So that's what we're working with, and we're trying to work through this as well as the energy cultures model, just trying to think now, how would you stage your questions as you have to go through and recognise who you were talking to in the past who's now got an email, and it's not necessarily the conversation or the evidence that would shift the new people that haven't yet got one. All right, so we got started about a prototype here with Dima and Olga, and then Fiona in my car, and then we gradually built this up, and then we got some lovely foundation grants from the participatory science platform of the Otago Museum. They kept us going. We publicly launched here, and you can see that we're starting to accelerate away here. And we've got an ECA grant here from the LEV fund. And we've recently got a new grant I'll tell you about here. So that's been the trajectory. Looks like we've got a lot of money, actually. We've gone broke. We've probably invested about $150,000 in voluntary time to get going. And this is one of the problems with about money. But it's growing fast. That's the first lesson. People are really enthusiastic. It's also a database, and this is common in citizen science, that just goes everywhere. It spreads widely. Here are the different regions. Auckland has most EVs, so it's unsurprising that they're in a big part of our panel, and Wellington and Christchurch. But Otago are doing very well. We've actually got almost the highest per capita EV ownership around the country. Not quite. I think that Auckland is cheating because they have the taxes and they have the New Zealand fleets registered up there, but they're not all being used there. So no, I think we're actually right on the door there, and a big part of that comes to support of local EV owners. We've got 106 members getting data at the moment from close to Otago, and 20 or so from central Otago. So Otago is flushing in, and we're trying to get an Otago perspective on how EVs go. We had to think about targeting the audience, and this is an important part of citizen science. Who are you actually talking to when involving? And we see two particular groups and two agendas. We have to look after the needs of the participants, otherwise they won't carry on giving us data. We give the data to everyone. But ultimately, we need to not just preach to the converted, but finding ways of getting the messages out to the prospective EV buyers is the end game. And so we've got a sort of a schizophrenic thing going on here between two types of effort. Talking inwards and keeping people motivated to get the quality of the data up, and talking outwards to make sure that that information is trusted for people who we want to buy electric vehicles. And there are EV businesses and service providers who are circling us, as I'll show you in a moment. But then the ultimate goal is to reach to these people, the researchers, policymakers. That's where our workshop after the seminar comes from, where we can try and embed these lessons into the people who are decision makers at a different level, and educators, and of course social change agents. The next lesson is you have to make the data personally customized and relevant. And here, this is an example of emissions savings of Fahrenheit leaf, and just the last year. And each of these bars gives an estimate of how many kilograms of CO2 our leaf has saved in that month from each data entry. And this starts to make us learn. Think, well, why was it high there? Well, this one's pretty obvious. I went to Christchurch these days. I go to Christchurch in the car in an electric vehicle, and I can get up there and back for around about $25. So that's getting on 800 kilometres for $25 outlay, and but also save a lot of CO2 along the way. This is the median from the sample, all of New Zealand's EVs, and this one down here is the 5 percentile, and up here is the 95 percentile. So you immediately get a benchmark. Not only are you getting your individual information given perspective, but you're getting to compare yourself against other EVs. And this turns out to be the thing that most of the participants really wanted. It's about, well, how well am I doing compared to others? That turns out to be around about 2,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent in a year that is saved from running our electric vehicle. So that's the type of thing. Now, that doesn't mean much to most people. You think, well, gazillions of kilograms, what does that actually mean? So the next lesson is to try to make the metrics for public consumption something a little bit more easy to imagine and quantify and feel. And this is an example where this is equivalent to around about 24 pine trees, working 24 pine trees, growing for 30 years. So not all of us have got enough land to put 30 pine trees in it and grow them through to maturity, but that is the estimate, and this is the sort of KPI that comes back here. And we also try and reflect to people, well, what does that mean to other parts of your life? Because we're about transition. And in this case, this is 9.7 return flights between Auckland and Wellington is the equivalent. So if you're running your car, you've offset around about 10 trips halfway up and down the country in your business. So this starts to give people a number that they can think about in their choices. And I think that's critical in terms of the KPIs. Gets beyond the data. What about dollar savings? A huge part of people's reasons for buying it is to save dollars. So this is the same thing for Fahrenheit leaf and the median here. And you can see, well, we won't go through all that, but we're saving around about 2 kilograms, $2,000 a year. That's the median. And ours is close to the median, slightly under. People think this is too low, but we're comparing it against equivalent new vehicles, so conventional vehicles. So if you're driving an old dunger of a conventional vehicle, you're probably going to save a lot more by shifting over. But this is the sort of calculation that comes out. So a rule of thumb, and we're looking for these slogans. I think for every dollar you save by running an electric car, you save the costs to your children and grandchildren of stripping a kilogram of CO2 out. These are coincidentally very similar. So why not put $1 in your back pocket and save your kids and future societies the cost of living with an extra kilogram of CO2 in that? And you can do that transaction 2,000 times in a year if you're running your car in a normal sort of middle level. So it starts to have a feel And this is an important part of citizen science. We also do these one-click surveys, and this comes through your email. This is what looks on your email. And we ask every 1 month, get sent this thing. The rule is it can only take them 5 seconds to click. It's usually a 5 or a 6 point Likert scale. And once you've chosen one of these, it takes you off to a page. Do you want to tell us why you chose 1 or 2? And people respond, and we actually love talking about their EVs. And we get a mass of information here. We're getting a 60 to 70% response rate. If we blog it within a week, there's another lesson. Get the feedback going really, really fast. Otherwise, people lose interest. You know, who are these people sending me random emails? Because they know within a week they're going to get what everyone else thought to the question. It keeps them energized, and we've created graphics. We've done 19 of these one-click surveys so far. You know, that one was a question about why did you buy your electric vehicle? And it turns out that roughly half of the people, what was the main reason we asked that you bought it? About half people bought it for their environmental benefits, and around about a third for running costs. But there were some people who were into the smart technology. There were a couple who really loved the quiet and comfortable ride you get. And there's some people with some sort of inner whom that really like it. So this gives us an idea of just the sort of data you get. But then we combine it with these, this is the blog, and there are 14 pages of this for this recent one. There's 14, 20 pages of comments. We sort them into rough sort of ideas, a very loose, quick summary, so people can in speed go down and see what are the main headings and what people said. But there is a huge database here for qualitative analysis for those of you who want to do that. 19 of these as it grows with a response to a specific question. So bit by bit, don't burden people, give them feedback quickly, and we're building a bank of both commentary and data. And just doing a word order, so the bigger the letter here, the word here, the more important it is in the Twocar or corridor about what's going on. And here's just an example. So what's important, I think, what really pleases us, people are loving the information they're getting from Flip the Fleet. Batteries turn out to be a big issue. We'll talk about an example of that. People seeing it as important, but it's about people and help, about life, and problem solving, and particularly making it useful. And people are very, very excited to have a New Zealand database. And that gives them confidence that the data and the information are actually about my hood, and they mean stuff to me. So that's an important part of it. We also do infographics like this, and we put them on social media, and we try and activate social media around here. This one happened to be about sexism. We were rightly pinged by a member saying, well, why are there always men in your infographics? And sure enough, I looked back through, and we had a strong male bias in the way we were depicting the messages. So did we try and change that? And one of the questions this time was, are men and women equally likely to buy an electric vehicle? So we're trying to get at the gender sort of things in there. And we had this sort of kind of output. Here's just one example of sort of things. So I go to the farmer's market almost every weekend and promote EVs. Typically, you'll have mum and dad and kids visit their booth. The kids get it. They plug in their phone, computer headphones. So why wouldn't you plug in your car? Mum gets it. She wants a car that's safe, practical, and saves money. Dad really gets it. If ever, no noise, no smell, no oil, no mess. How can this be good? The dad is 97.5% likely to die. So, okay, a lively quote, we end up picking it out and putting it into the media, which makes me really uncomfortable. But we found that this has gone everywhere. It's gone to the South China Times. It's gone to the New Zealand Herald. People really got into this sort of side, and it raises an important issue. Like, should we be talking to petrol heads about getting them onto EVs, or should we just be saying, actually, what's the last time you got a woman forecourt attendant come and try and sell you a car? And it fits with the ECA data and their surveys that are showing that women are fast growing into this space, being the main decision makers around buying electric vehicles. So there's an important part in terms of transition and messaging. And we go out to the listener. This is an example about the battery issue. I'll tell you in a moment. A feature article, we've had a couple of those. And we've gone out to publish in open source publishing. We use the preprint platform, which I'm not that familiar with, but we have some bad news about electric batteries. And we decided we really had to get this out. We were worried about court injunctions, we were worried about all sorts of problems about it getting away. So we gave everyone plenty of warning, and then we said, right, we're going to publish on this this coming Friday. And they said that it would take 12 hours on average to you submit for putting it into this open source space. Actually, within 3 hours it was out, and by the next morning we had 750 people that had seen it around the world. And it's now been seen, viewed by around about 10,200 people, and downloaded, getting on for 2,000 times. And we saw waves of this going through the social media networks around Spain, Europe, US, people putting the dots together about our data. It was actually a stunning kind of example. And this is about open peer review, so that's the philosophy of citizen science. But we have had criticism that we haven't put this through anonymous peer review. We had it looked at by 12 scholars before we submitted it. And then you'll see that if you go to that site, you'll see there's about 20 comments of debate, a form of open peer review, which incidentally, Moller, when I worked with Moller, I said, why did you have anonymous peer review? That's got to change. That really sucks. That's unethical. That means people will be blocked. You have to be personally responsible. You know, different worldviews come into play here about whose truth matters. And this is an example where open source publishing fits very well with citizen science. Some of the messages have got to go out to the wider public, not only just the individuals. So this is a trajectory for all of New Zealand's EVs about how much CO2 they've avoided in the last month. And it looks great, isn't it? That's 18,000 trees, but it's actually equivalent to offsetting 370 person trips between Auckland, London, Heathrow and back. And that's about one jet trip. And in New Zealand alone, run 400 jet trips in that circuit in a month. So all of us together are offsetting about 1/400th of one route for one airliner. And this is like trying to drive these home in a way that people are very proud of their car, seeing how they're going, and then we're reflecting them back to collective things, and this is creating, we hope, an awareness. Not about judging. Joan and I went to see our wonderful son in Rome. We blew 4 years of our savings about the EV by going and seeing our son in Rome. That's a real wake-up call for thinking about my lifestyle and what I do. And this is an awareness platform in that sort of way. We ask people, another part of citizen science is you have to continually ask people, what do they want? What do they want? We're meeting your needs. What do you most want next? And here's an example of a one-click survey. What's the most valuable component of what we're doing? And here's the benchmarking thing. That's the most popular side. But people really like the data from their own car, and they wanted background resources. That surprised me. We have a page I'll show you in a moment about background resources. But it turns out we're becoming a clearinghouse for resources. And the one-click surveys, they're kind of interested in what other EV owners think, and then other. So there's a sort of an idea of a constant consultation, participation, feeling that it's their project. Now let's talk a little bit about one piece of the science to illustrate some of the strengths and weaknesses of the science side of the database. And we're going to choose this rather unpleasant discovery around battery capacity loss. So just like when you have a cell phone and it's new, you can store more energy at the beginning, but eventually as it gets older, you plug it from single to single. Cars are no different. The first thing to notice is that it's what we're talking about here is a convenience sample, which is a new term for me. It's another part of it. We learn it from other scholars. But the idea that it's a sort of voluntary, non-random selection of people step up to give you the data. Is that representative? We don't know for sure. We've got various clues that it's sort of right. But there's the first sort of fish on. And this is talking about the February analysis that was behind that paper. At that point, we had 1,800 measures. And most of them were from this 24 kilowatt hour leaf, smaller first generation and second generation leaves, and 104 from these 30 kilowatt hour leaves. But the other thing is we're looking at information coming off vehicles that have spent most of their life actually in another country, if we're importing these vehicles. So interpreting the data is what we're seeing and reading off these cars, mainly driven by what happened back in Japan, or what does it happen in New Zealand. It doesn't reflect what is in New Zealand, or is it a mixture of both? So could a battery be damaged in Japan, and no matter what you do in New Zealand, we can't repair it or hold it down? That's one of the questions that come out of it. So it's a mixed, very difficult database to interpret. But, so that's some of the scientific things. However, there's an example of an app that's just on your smartphone. It's something called LeaseFi, and it interrogates the battery management system and the cameras of the vehicle. So this is your 96 different batteries. They sit under your car if you own a Leaf, keep it low generation, and it's looking at the charging rates. But you also get these things. Here's the state of health, 93%. So that's predicting that the battery can now hold 93% of the energy that it used to be able to hold when it was first manufactured. So it's lost 7% of its energy holding capacity. But it's also telling you that in the life of the vehicle, it's had 9 quick charges, this vehicle, and it's had 175 charges at home under either 8 amps or 15 amps. So that's this kind of data that anyone's going to get for buying a $30 dongle. But also we got a Otago Museum use that graph to give people dongles and get them started. So this data comes in, and it turns out we had the only data in the world, we think independent data, of the way this index state of health of the battery was, the rate at which it was declining. The other thing that happens is in citizen science is you meet new people and our new team forms. These are incredible people who put in so much energy, particularly around the battery issue. Here we've got Dima, who was co-founder with me, but Daniel Meyer, he walked out of an audience in the Christchurch EV group, and he studies the cost of people getting old, getting Parkinsonianism and all those sorts of things, but he's an EV owner, and it's just the same sort of models that we would apply for how does a car transition as it gets older. So he's become our main statistician. So Donald Love is an electrical engineer. Walter Larison turns out to be a genius. He's reverse engineering a lot of the signals coming off the battery systems and learning what they actually mean. He's an EV expert. And he's been running tests on this state of health side. He was in Christchurch. Joe Barnett is an expert in reporting second-hand cars and understanding homologation issues about the cars we bring in. And Mark Nixon is EV champion from Christchurch. These guys are spending hours starting after midnight, keeping cars at constant temperature and running down their temperature to test, running down their charge to try to learn how much energy is actually held in the battery and comparing it to distance state. I take my hat off to them all. And these are people who are all coming out of the woodwork. It's not paid work or anything, citizen scientists, but at a very highly skilled professional end who are stepping out. Here's the data. This is just the earlier start. We now have twice the number of points in the last couple of months. But on the top here, you have the 24 kilowatt hour trajectories. On this scale is the battery state of health, this percentage. At the bottom here, we have the 30 kilowatt hour ones. And this big red dot here is what Nissan said the battery should last, should get to about 80% here by 5 years. And you can see that the model, the ASIA models that have been fitted, says it's actually a little bit ahead. It's actually doing better than the manufacturer suggested. But this is the one that just shocked us today. So the new 30 kilowatt hour battery issue. You can see the model. We're having struggles fitting the model. We don't have data in this first part because that happened in Japan or the UK. But this is now declining at 3 times the rate. At about 2 years, it's declining at 3 times the rate compared to the 24 kilowatt hour. But remember, it's a reported state of health, and we have to figure out if it's real or not. But this was a shock. So what you do as a citizen science team, when you find bad news like this, there's millions of dollars at stake. Families are buying these vehicles, these 30 kilowatt hour ones, very excited, and we are getting the preliminary data that there could be, but not proven, a problem with the battery. We had to really weigh up at what point do you go out and go public. The ultimate would be to send it to a peer-reviewed journal, wait a year and get it out, by which time another 10,000 New Zealand families will have invested in a car that might not be have lasted distance. So that was nasty, and we learned a lot about vested interests and processes. Nissan have just ignored us. They had the data earlier on. they said that they're aware of a limited number of customers who've had a problem here. But we see from the social media around the world that other people are joining the dots here and saying that there is something amiss here. So, there we go. But it was our independence that was important. Okay. So we now have to check this. We get it out in the public. We did it reverse of a normal science team. Check it all, get it right, get it peer reviewed, then finally get it published, and then do a media release. We flip that on its head because of the risks of us getting people into trouble and getting dealers into trouble and so on. So then we've gone back to the Twocar Museum. They've granted us another grant to actually test whether this reported state of health is reliable. But also they've created a whole lot of, allowed us to buy a whole lot of black boxes, these things here, and these will go in the dashboards, hidden out on site, and every minute they will scan the battery's temperature and performance and efficiency. And we have that deployed on 28 30 kilowatt hours and 4 24 ones, and we're testing hypotheses that what is causing the degradation in the 30s is holding the batteries at high charge and higher temperature. So that's the kind of next stage of the work. Here's an example of the thing. Getting 130 data fields coming in every minute, while they squirt it out every 5 minutes through the 3G network. But this gives fine-grained data, often monthly looks at the performance we have. What about the next audience, public outreach? So the constant criticism and the skepticism whether we were going to make a difference was that we only talk to EV owners. So we've put a lot of effort into going beyond them with the data. Here's an example. Any member of the public can go there and look at just a sample of anonymised reports. Or in this case, it's DEMA and Olga's and Fiona My Car that they can see, but they can see the means. That's a way of getting people to see the data and hopefully trust it. The resource pages turned out to be very popular, so here we got, considering an EV benchmarking, but getting onto things like teachers' resources and so on. So technical know-how, and it turns out there's a need for this type of thing. A large part of it is actually around consumer protection, which we didn't anticipate. We thought we were getting into science, but it turns out we become a consumer protection kind of spokespeople. The website is really important. Here's the number of visits coming in each day on the website, and you see this was when the battery issue hit the press. But yeah, we're cruising along here at 20 or 30. Every time there's a media release, it bumps up a bit. But a lot of these people are going to those pages to find out about EVs. So we think we're getting to beyond these convertible rock. And it's our public view, but we have to keep it refreshed. So we end up posting 3 or 4 or 5 things on there a month and giving people an update on email, getting feedback. We're here for you. We love your data. Thank you. Here's what everyone else is saying to put your data into perspective. If you go to sleep at the wheel, you will lose the participation. That takes a lot of time. Be aware if you get into this. The funding challenges are enormous, and we have to make it sustainable. We now have to find some serious funding, and we ask people, well, where should we get our funding from? And they really want us to go to independent grants from the government. They don't want us to go anywhere near industry. Sponsorship for funding from industry might be possible, but not from car dealers or people who manufacture the cars. They desperately want us to maintain our credibility and independence. Maybe we could license the technology, but that's part of the transparency. If they're gifting us data, they have to see what money is coming in. Here's another weird one. You can just see for that example about funding. This is mainly in the context of stay away from industry. Or if you do, get them into a disclosure agreement so that they can't. But what they've most valued was the independence of the data. So what are the opportunities and strengths? And we'll round up shortly. We've got a growing data depth and width and geographic speed. There's the beginnings of a longitudinal data stream in New Zealand. There's a mix of coarse and fine-grained information in there, and there's a social research platform, well established and with a high response rate. We do have industry and policy links, and I think we have a pathway to uptake for other research things if we put those together. And I believe we've got a proof of product now. 2 years ago when we went to Wellington and asked 8 ministries would they like this, they all said yes, but they over there should pay for it and or go away and prove that it will work and it's popular enough. So it's been pretty well a year and a half of establishing proof of product. But when it's up and running, I think it's relatively low cost now that it's established. Weaknesses and threats. There's some lose in the data. You can get some rather strange outliers. And not everyone has the discipline of being able to report data systematically. We don't know about the representative of information. We failed in a grant for a formal test of that. And there's a participant fatigue. Now go back to that graph I showed you earlier on. That this is the sign-ups and the bars as we've gone through the last 2 years, year and a half. But this line here is the number of data points that have been uploaded into the data by people who have signed up. And you see people take a holiday, but you can see there's a widening gap beginning here between the sign-ups. So we don't know if that's natural. We want to try and manage that and bring that up again. Note down here, it was higher than the number of sign-ups because people had notebooks. And they historically put data back to, some of the data goes back to 2012 because they had all those data and they backloaded it for us. So we have a problem here about participant fatigue, perhaps, that we have to work on. I think it's managing the imposition on participants. Some of them complain, too many data, too many emails. Others are saying, just lapping it up. You can't please everyone. There are multiple agendas afoot, so clear partnership expectations and management are needed. And it's incredibly time consuming at the moment under the resources for some of the threats. But we asked people last time, well, will flip the fleet accelerate EV uptake in New Zealand? So these are the participants who know most about the program, and we wavered and what would we get back. But you can actually see that the majority of people here, around about 79%, maybe a little bit over that, I should have written that down, either agreed or strongly agreed. They can see it changing. People in the program were convinced by our data and board anyway, but they can see attitudes changing around them and the people they're interacting with. Those that said neither, mainly they were worried that just it's too big a problem. It's not about data, not about numbers. You're never going to convince people with numbers. Other people love numbers. It's about keeping these different conversations going about what is important for people. One or two disagreed because they just felt it was hopeless. We can't, and also we brought bad news with it, 24 hour batteries. And it's just said, look, you made it worse by publicising the bad news. But most people affirm the fact that we went out honestly and said, it's some fact there. Electric vehicles aren't all a panacea, and they certainly won't meet everyone's needs. Okay, so they have confidence. The key criteria then, this is kind of summing up. I think it's useful for researchers and the participants. This is a review we did. The data have to be useful or people will just stop. You need a clearly defined aim and communicate that from the beginning. You have to actually have appropriate expertise for the science analysis and communication. It's not just the science part, it's the outreach part. It needs professional help. I think you need to constantly evaluate and trial it first. Well, we did that for a year. And you have to allow for different levels of skill and commitment. So in the end, we introduced a system where people could be light, medium, or heavy tech in how much information they gave. Because some people got distressed by a long list of things. They were invited just to tell them what they wanted, but they saw all the things they were missing and they lost confidence. So we've just changed the software around now. They nominate whether they want the 2 questions, a middle level question, with some detail. I think you have to build a team constantly. It's a team effort. You've got to make it fun. You have to check the science quality. Adequate funding, I've stretched too much probably, but don't overcomplicate it. Some people are still finding the data, even though we try all the time to make it simple. It's not about making it dumb or stupid. It's about communicating the real information, even sometimes quite complicated stuff in the best possible way. And I think you have to show open sharing of data, rapid feedback, and I think you have to take action. So our media outreach side is, yes, it's fulfilling our goal to get the message out from the early adopters to the early majority. So it's important in that way, but it's also showing those participants their data has been put into action. And that is the greater motivator for keeping them going all the way along. So what have we learned? It's time consuming and challenging. Funding of it is extremely difficult because it falls between the stones of classic research-funded science where you'll get a decent budget and some sort of NGO effort. There's a professional skepticism. Remember those people about the wasps? You wouldn't really know where the wasps came from, and we have that again with the vacuum one. You couldn't trust people to write down these photos. Of course you can. And this huge stretch and depth and solidity in the data, it makes up for its woes by having a huge volume that can cross-check. And I think it's a fast and penetrating data stream, but I think too it's a personally transformative thing for me. I suddenly learned that science was actually something socially relevant, whereas I've been trained all those years to think that science only is to gather society because you might be, you have to stay objective and all the rest. Actually, it's the personal feedbacks that keep us going, or getting us out of bed, or keeping us going through the night to get some sort of deadline done. And I believe that it can assist sustainable transformation. So thank you very much. All these people, I would like to single out Jefferson here sitting in the back. He helped us with the grant, part of the grant money from the Twocar Museum in those middle years, or that middle year. Thank you, Jefferson, and Pam McKinley is a local example also. And the Energy Research Centre for hosting this. There we go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Henrik. Any questions? Yeah, okay.
I guess in terms of the advocacy role that you talked about, in terms of not just being within your echo chamber of like-minded people like these and trying to get work beyond that. What sort of barriers are there to that work in terms of the uptake of EVs across different parts of society? Obviously, cost will be one.
Yeah.
So one of the, I guess the significance will be around demographics, types of people who buy EVs.
Yeah.
Are they middle class, good incomes, blah, blah.
Yeah. So we haven't really gone to that personal detail. We wanted to risk minimise at the beginning, but that would be an example of follow-up information about them. So when they sign up, we learn about where they charge, when they charge in the day, what equipment they have, what they pay for their power bill, all those sorts of things. Do they have other cars in the garage as well as EV? There's a huge database there of very useful but rather unthreatening questions. But getting at the demographics would be really, really interesting. Also, the one-click surveys are scrupulously anonymous, and we think that they are thoroughly honest. Or do we get it in the ear as well as the explanation? And it's and that's an important part of the trust. So getting a trace on who's giving us the answers is there's danger there as well. We need a separate inquiry. What we are very keen on understanding is that it's horses for horses, different conversations for different people. So our strategy has been to spread it really wide, give a whole lot of financial indicators of benefits, and a whole lot of environmental ones. Where we're struggling is in the social ones, as usual. And we'd really love some help from social researchers to find some meaningful social indicators. These things make you feel good. It's something they can do. It's not only saves you money, but it's pleasant. And over and over, people say, "Oh, I just feel so good about that. Why do I need numbers? I knew this was right, and I love it." And that's the type of thing we somehow have to get those sorts of messages across there. So we tend to do it with quotes into the media releases. And to give it a personal touch that way and combine it with the numbers. So you always have both things going, the numbers and the personal experience. But I'm sure we could do it much smarter, and we sure as hell have to work out what are our messages to the early majority now. Because you could see from those graphs that mainly so far they are environmentally oriented people, and you can't change people's values. And then you don't have time to change people's values to, even if you wanted to get them one trajectory into why they would buy an electric vehicle. You need to affirm them all. And that's been the strategy and what we've tried to reflect back.
So, you quoted a saving of roughly $2,000.
Yep.
But obviously people are going to use their cars a lot more or less.
Yeah.
So do your figures reflect the actual usage?
Yeah. That calculation is based on the kilometre run or the mileage for the car for a month or and a year. So it's directly proportionate to their use. From that, we use statistical modelling to predict how much fuel they will have used for a vehicle of equivalent size and power. And from that, we calculate the dollar savings. So someone that leaves their EV in the garage is not going to save very much at all. We have a return on interest. It's a new name, Ivan. We called it return on investment, and I didn't like that, but we called it return on interest. I decided not to bang your heads on it for today, but it's like the multiples of the interest you would pay on buying an electric car compared to buying a commercial one. And what it turns out is, if you look at that, it turns out that about 4% of people don't make money out of owning an EV. They basically, these are Tesla owners who don't buy a Tesla to save money. Or they leave the car pretty well in the garage and they're hardly using it very much. And so there's very little gain from having spent a lot more money on getting an electric vehicle. Then there is 5% of people who are way out there. They're earning almost 20 times the interest. So they're banking 20 times the interest. If you happen to be commuting long distances just on the range of your vehicle and you bought a cheap vehicle, the median is around about 730% at the moment, so roughly 7 times the interest. But that middle level of $2,000 was based on someone doing a middle level mileage with a middle level electricity bill, the cost of electricity. That turns out that you bank 7 times of the interest that you had to pay on an extra cost of buying an electric vehicle. So we're arguing that electric vehicles are already cost effective. You bank money as you drive down the road. But 4% of us don't. For the reasons we're talking about.
Ivan, you had a question.
Okay, I think the question was that the EV may change your use of vehicle use.
Yeah.
So you may have been a 1-car family and gone to a 2-car family. So, but it doesn't sound like you account for that.
No, we're just doing the EV, and what we found in my behaviour is we try and transfer all the travel we can to our EV. It's roughly 85–90%. We keep it on safari for towing plants up to 2 miles and for occasional long trips. And it turns out almost 80% of the people who own an EV keep an old conventional vehicle. Often sits in they want it for security at the beginning, and they keep it. But then it starts to get cobwebs and rust, and then you learn that the EV is actually meeting all the needs beautifully anyway. And so it tends to get flicked on further down the track. But at the moment, most of the people with EVs have got a backup of another car, and some of them have several. And there's another issue, it's about getting fewer cars in New Zealand, not having them all EVs. We have almost 4 million cars for 4.8 million or 4.6 million people. So there'll be a lot of babies out there driving cars around, but we all need one. So there is an issue there about cars as well. So families run virtual hybrids. The other big question we haven't talked about is, would you buy a hybrid, plug-in hybrid vehicle, which has got a petrol motor and propels motor, as well as a battery one. And many New Zealanders, particularly if you want off-road use or feeling insecure about range, will genuinely have a need to get off-road long distances with one vehicle, then they buy hybrids. And we found that they are incredibly in the order of 8 times more expensive than an electric vehicle to run. We don't know yet how many how much of the running is on the battery compared to the fossil fuel. So frankly, I hope New Zealand dodges the plug-in hybrid wave that's coming at us, because there's more embodied energy in there to create it. On the other hand, if that gets people started, and that's when they genuinely need a plug-in hybrid, then it's a great halfway first choice. But if you really don't need it, why not dodge it and go directly to a pure EV?
Just a quick positive thing about
Yeah.
the non-plug-in hybrids,
Yes.
which is what I
Yeah.
so it doesn't use any electricity.
Yeah.
And I can go to Christchurch and back
Yeah.
on a tiny tank
Yeah.
of petrol
Yeah.
because I don't use it.
Yeah.
And also that's what all the taxi fleets in places like Wellington and so on, they're changing
Yeah.
to these non-plug-in hybrids. And I think that's a good step,
Yeah.
not a bad one. And the price of them is comparable.
Yes.
So you're not paying a whole lot of money for the car, and you're at least halfway towards a much,
Yeah.
much better.
Yes, Kira, it's dead right. Most of the people who EV started on a conventional hybrid, and the Toyota Prius was enormously important in that regard. And modern cars are now a lot quieter, more efficient, go a lot further. These automotive industries have known what to do for at least 10 years. But now that there's a bit of a competition scramble for the marketplace, suddenly these cars are becoming much more efficient. And so you buy a new modern car, it is superb compared to the one that we like to be driving around that is 10 years or 15 years old. We live in a country with very old cars on average. And this is both an opportunity and a bit of a barrier. It's the opportunity for cleaning up our environment and reducing our CO2. Is that actually there's a huge gain if you go to any new car. And if you don't want to have electric, then I would say exactly go for a conventional hybrid. If you can do even better, go for a plug-in hybrid, and if you can possibly do it, go all the way to an EV. This, to me, is the logical sequence in terms of environmental impacts and performance. But everyone has to be at a different part of this continuum, and you have to make sure you buy the vehicle that meets your needs.
So Henrik, I have a question about the data. So I just want to move it away from EVs a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's a very intriguing method of collecting data, and I guess I just have a couple of questions. If you were doing it again, would you change your methodology so that you ensured you had a kind of more, I guess, across New Zealand sample?
I don't know. I think we have to try it and see where we win. And I don't know where you get prior information like that. It was very simple. Can we get something that was user-friendly, made in the weekends and evenings, people with excitement and see if it grew? So it was very haphazard, but now we can fill in gaps and get much more targeted. But right back at the beginning, no, I don't think we have any alternative. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, so the other question is how much, I guess, how much information do you think people might be willing to provide? I mean, okay, so I guess I just mean, how sophisticated do some of the questions get?
At the moment, I would say as a scientist, not very sophisticated, but we're now spinning off into separate research topics that are the most complex I've ever come up with. I was a failure at physics. I wish I listened now. But you know, listening to this team now try and work out whether the state of health is great or not, I'm scrambling to keep up. And that is complex, really complex controlled science, and that's been spurred by this need, and we'll loop back into it. So there becomes little modules that get very, very critical, and if we do get partnerships with others in the university, so I haven't even talked about that before. I'm really hoping the university does more of this work. We'll certainly cover it in the workshop coming up next. I actually think it's a huge part of social responsibility of the university is to join with its citizens, and this is a wonderful way of getting their knowledge and capturing it. I'm a bit embarrassed, I should have that in my final conclusion, because it was in my abstract. I cannot see why our institute does not do more than this. I mean, well, I can see that it doesn't fit PBRF requirements. It's unpredictable and slow in some ways, but it is transformative in terms of one's passion for one's work. And it is building bridges between the citizenry and the university. And both have got gifts to give to the other. It's about respectful reciprocity here. We'll talk about that in the workshop. So that is an amazing ride to find that the universities are really wanted and appreciated and respected, and equally for these people who are contributing. A lot of the feedback is so great to be part of the club. Now I often call it a club, but to be contributing into something like this.